Iowa teams left a mark on women's college basketball, but also women's basketball at large. Is that like kind of crazy to think about? Like you were a part of.
Kate Martin's WNBA journey didn't just start with promise. It started like a prophecy. The kind that fans, analysts, and even teammates believed would explode into greatness. But instead of a fairy tale rise, it turned into a nightmare written in slow motion. The former Iowa standout who once stood shoulder-to-shoulder with Caitlin Clark, her best friend, teammate, and the other half of Iowa's unstoppable heart, found herself invisible in the glittering world of the Las Vegas Aces. The same woman who helped turn Iowa basketball into a national spectacle. Who was the pulse behind Clark's fireworks? Now sat in silence, buried on a bench that didn't deserve her. Night after night, Kate Martin's minutes shrank. Her spark dimmed and her dream began slipping through her fingers. What was supposed to be the next chapter in her rise became a cruel reminder that talent doesn't always guarantee opportunity. But then came a phone call, a lifeline from none other than Caitlin Clark herself. That single moment changed everything. It wasn't just a conversation between two former teammates, it was a resurrection. Kate Martin's story wasn't over. It was being rewritten. To understand how we got here, you've got to rewind to Iowa Place that became the epicenter of a basketball revolution. Before Caitlin Clark's logo threes and before Kate Martin's steady. Leadership transformed Carver Hawkeye Arena into the loudest building in America. Iowa wasn't supposed to be a basketball powerhouse. It was just another program trying to make noise in a crowded field. But then came Caitlin, the showstopper, the flash. And then came Kate, the heartbeat, the glue, the structure holding it all together. Clark was the lightning, Kate was the thunder that made the storm complete. Every highlight reel might have belonged to Caitlin, but the foundation beneath it all was Kate Martin. She wasn't just another player on that team, she was the team's balance. The calm within chaos, the silent system that turned individual brilliance into collective dominance. Players and coaches who saw it firsthand knew it wasn't just skill, it was synergy. Kate Martin had something most players don't, the ability to make everyone around her better. She didn't chase the spotlight. She built it. When Iowa shocked the world and reached back-to-back Final Fours, Kate's fingerprints were on everything. Her averages 13 points, 7 rebounds didn't tell the whole story. It wasn't about numbers. It was about leadership, poise, and unshakable trust. When Caitlin rained logo threes, it was Kate who set the perfect off-ball screen. When Iowa's defense cracked, it was Kate rotating to fix it. When the crowd grew deafening, she was the one whispering calm into her teammates' ears. You don't teach that. It's born in players who understand that greatness isn't about being seen. It's about making others shine brighter. But even back then, before WNBA lights, before the millions of viewers and viral clips, Kate Martin's leadership style stood out. Caitlin Clark herself has admitted that she learned from Kate's composure. While Caitlin played with fury, Kate led with grace. It was good cop, bad cop in motion, the perfect duality. In the middle of pressure cooker moments when Iowa teetered between chaos and control, Kate was the anchor. She built relationships off the court so her words mattered on it. She didn't just tell teammates what to do, she earned the right to lead them. It's called relationship equity, she once said, and that phrase captured everything about her. She wasn't loud, but she was heard. The defining moment came during the 2023 Final Four showdown against undefeated South Carolina. Everyone thought Iowa would be crushed. The Gamecocks were giants, relentless, unbeatable. But Iowa didn't just compete. They outsmarted them. Kate Martin calls that game the best moment of her career, and you can see why. Watch the tape, she's everywhere. Boxing out, cutting off passing lanes, calling plays, sacrificing her body for extra possessions. When Caitlin Clark needed room to create, Kate cleared it. When Iowa needed composure, she supplied it. Every intangible, every heartbeat of that win carried her signature. That victory didn't just send Iowa to the championship, it cemented Kate's identity as the kind of player who changes outcomes without demanding credit. But that Iowa magic didn't follow her to Las Vegas. And that's where the story turns dark. Drafted by the Aces, the reigning dynasty of the WNBA, Kate believed she had landed in the perfect place. A championship culture, a veteran roster, a coach who preached toughness sounded ideal. But she quickly learned that not all success stories are meant for newcomers. The Aces weren't building. They were protecting. And rookies don't get protection, they get forgotten. In her first few games, she saw the floor, carved out moments, showed flashes of the same IQ that made her invaluable at Iowa. But as the season wore on, those flashes vanished. By September, she was averaging barely 11 minutes. Her numbers too. 6 points, 1. 6 rebounds weren't reflections of failure. They were reflections of neglect. You can't prove your worth when you're not even given the stage. The truth is harsh. The WNBA isn't just about talent. It's about timing. And Kate Martin had landed in a place where there was no room to grow. A'ja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum superstars with ironclad roles dominated the spotlight. Becky Hammon's system didn't nurture rookies. It buried them behind layers of hierarchy. Kate wasn't playing against other rookies. She was competing against a machine that had no reason to change. And no matter how much she hustled in practice, no matter how many reps she put in, the outcome stayed the same. More bench time. Every game became torture. Every buzzer that sounded without her name being called felt like another nail in her confidence. Imagine being told you're one of the most selfless, intelligent players in your generation, then being told to sit and stay ready. Stay ready for what? For a miracle. For an injury. For scraps of playing time that barely allowed you to break a sweat. Kate wasn't just being benched. She was being erased. By the time the playoffs arrived, the writing was on the wall. 6 games, 3 total minutes. That wasn't development, that was dismissal. She wasn't part of the plan. She was part of the background. And that's when everything changed. At her lowest point, questioning whether she even belonged in professional basketball, Kate Martin picked up the phone and called the one person who had always told her the truth, Caitlin Clark. Clark didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't offer pity. She offered perspective. She reminded Kate of who she was, the leader who turned Iowa into a national force. The glue that made others believe. The player who never quit when the world underestimated her. Caitlin knew the league's brutality too well. She told Kate the one thing no one else dared to. You're not failing, they're failing you. Those words hit like lightning. In that moment, Kate realized that her situation in Vegas wasn't a reflection of her ability, was a reflection of their priorities. She didn't need to beg for a role in someone else's system. She needed to find one that believed in her. Then came the expansion draft. And for the first time in months, the universe tilted in her favor. The Golden State Valkyries, a brand new WNBA franchise, selected her. To outsiders, it looked like a small transaction. To Kate Martin, it was salvation. Leaving Vegas wasn't an ending, it was a rebirth. When she got the call, she didn't cry or complain about being unprotected by the Aces. She smiled. She understood what it meant. Opportunity. It's a business, she said. It is what it is. That's the poise of someone who's been hardened by disappointment and still chooses gratitude. She wasn't bitter. She was ready. Ready to show the world what Vegas never let her prove. And from the moment she arrived in the Bay Area, everything felt different. The Golden State Valkyries weren't just assembling a roster, they were building an identity. A new city, a new crowd, a new energy. Season tickets sold out instantly. The ownership promised a championship within 5 years. The fans were already electric. And right in the middle of that chaos stood Kate Martin, one of the foundational pieces of something historic. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about redemption. Golden State's front office saw her for what she truly was, a culture setter. Someone who could lead, communicate, and inspire. Her new coach, Natalie Ness, didn't care about draft status or star politics. She cared about intent, effort, and chemistry. She gave Kate something Vegas never did: trust. Mistakes aren't punished, Ness said. Complacency is. That philosophy was tailor-made for Kate's DNA. The Valkyries wanted unselfish players, key, high Q players, people who valued connection over clout. Kate Martin was the prototype. No ego, no agenda, just pure work ethic and heart. Her first home game at Chase Center said it all. The building roared like a college crowd again. Even when Golden State trailed, the fans stayed, chanting until the final whistle. For Kate, that loyalty meant everything. They stayed the entire time, she said. That means a lot. That single quote captures her whole journey, a woman who never stopped showing up. Even when the odds say she shouldn't. Unlike Vegas, this team isn't built on hierarchy, it's built on hope. And for the first time since Iowa, Kate Martin is in a system designed to make her thrive. Her role isn't to sit and wait. It's to set the tone. To bring that same Hawkeye grit and communication that elevated Caitlin Clark to superstardom. To be the glue that binds a brand new team together. And here's the thing about glue players. They may not get headlines, but they hold dynasties together. They may not get headlines, but they hold dynasties together. They said the numbers told the truth, but whose truth was it? When ESPN plastered bold headlines across the screen bragging about record-breaking viewership, few bothered to read between the lines. The lights, the graphics, the polished anchors all shouting one message. The league was thriving. But behind that shine, something darker pulsed. Fans weren't tuning in for balance or variety. They were chasing one name, one phenomenon, Caitlin Clark. Every spike in ratings, every surge in social engagement, every viral clip, they all traced back to the rookie, who had become both the WNBA's greatest blessing and its most uncomfortable mirror. And ESPN knew it. They twisted her impact into a collective victory while quietly muting the reality that one player had carried an entire sport into relevance again. The deeper you looked, the clearer the manipulation became. ESPN's graphics team conveniently merged numbers from preseason exhibitions, all-star events, even cross-promotions with men's games, blurring lines to inflate the illusion of parity. Meanwhile, talking heads framed the narrative as growth across the board, steering the spotlight away from Clark's gravitational pull. It wasn't just careless reporting, it was calculated. The network that once ignored the WNBA now feared being seen as playing favorites, even when the audience itself had already chosen its favorite. So instead of celebrating Clark's singular influence, they dressed it up as a group effort. It's not just Caitlin Clark. They repeated like a script, as if repetition could rewrite reality. Yet the fans weren't blind. On social media, they tore through the facade, comparing minute-by-minute rating spikes that coincided precisely with fever tip-offs. Independent analysts posted graphs showing how non-fever games cratered back to baseline once Clark wasn't on screen. Hashtags like #CaitlynEffect and #WNBASpin trended worldwide. People demanded transparency, but ESPN doubled down, deploying panels to discuss team parity, while sneak editing highlight reels that reduced Clark's plays to quick flashes between longer segments about veteran stars. It was media politics disguised as sports coverage. Inside the locker rooms, the tension grew thicker. Players who once dismissed Clark now found themselves wrestling with envy and exhaustion. They saw the crowds she drew, the cameras she commanded, and how even their post-game interviews seemed to orbit around her name. Some, like Angel Reese and Aja Wilson, embraced the rivalry, publicly fueling storylines that ESPN happily exploited for clicks. But others simmered quietly, frustrated that their years of effort were now overshadowed by one newcomer. The network fed that bitterness, highlighting underrated veterans in emotionally charged packages that subtly positioned Clark as the outsider, the disruptor, the cause of imbalance. And while the athletes clashed, the league office smiled. Ratings meant leveraged new sponsors, better deals, rising ad revenue. ESPN executives knew this storm sold. Every controversy, every subtle jab, every sideline glare became another headline, another trending clip. The goal wasn't harmony. It was engagement. If conflict kept people watching, so be it. The WNBA became a chessboard where ESPN moved narratives like Pisa's villains, heroes, redemption arcs all revolving around the one queen who didn't ask for the crown but couldn't take it off. Fans began comparing the coverage to scripted television. It's reality TV in sneakers. One viral comment read, "And maybe that wasn't wrong." The broadcast pacing shifted. Commentators adopted theatrical tones. Graphics framed rivalries like movie posters. The truth of the game, the strategy, the defense. The growth of rookies and veterans alike was buried beneath dramatized storytelling. But drama was profitable. And Caitlin Clark had become the perfect protagonist. Humble yet defiant. Targeted yet triumphant. ESPN's editorial board debated daily how far they could stretch her narrative without snapping public trust. Some argued for authenticity. Let her success speak for itself. Others pushed sensationalism. Keep feeding the feud. The second group usually won. Soon, entire segments were built around speculation: who liked whose post, who rolled their eyes in a press conference, who walked past Clark without a handshake. The league had turned into a soap opera, and the network held the script. But every empire built on spin eventually faces its reckoning. Independent journalists started dissecting the numbers line by line, revealing inconsistencies that mainstream media ignored. Analysts pointed out that when Clark's games were removed from the equation, overall viewership barely improved from last season. Some media critics accused ESPN of gaslighting the public into believing the league's popularity was evenly distributed. When confronted, network spokespeople offered vague statements about collective growth metrics and shared audience uplift. Translation: they were protecting their relationship with the league while milking Clark's fame for as long as possible. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark herself kept her focus on the court. While pundits debated narratives, she was chasing wins, breaking records, and redefining rookie expectations. Her calm in chaos only amplified her magnetism. Fans connected to her not because of the spin, but despite it. They saw the isolation she endured, the rough fouls ignored by referees, the clipped interviews where her quotes were rearranged for effect. She represented something authentic in a landscape built on manipulation. And that authenticity terrified those who depended on controlling the story. The cracks in ESPN's illusion widened when internal emails leaked small fragments hinting that producers had been instructed to balance coverage by minimizing Clark's airtime during highlight rotations. The justification: we need to maintain narrative equity. That phrase spread like wildfire online. Fans demanded answers. Former anchors chimed in anonymously, admitting that the pressure to tone down the Clark coverage was real. The backlash forced ESPN to issue a half-hearted clarification, claiming their goal was to represent all athletes fairly. But by then, the public trust had already been fractured. As the playoffs approached, the spin couldn't keep up with reality. The fever's rise drew undeniable numbers, dwarfing rival matchups. Even ESPN's own analytics team leaked data showing that Clark-centric content generated up to 400% more engagement than any other WNBA topic. The network's credibility teetered on contradiction. It couldn't deny the metrics it profited from. So they shifted strategy-less denial, more dilution. They began pairing Clark highlights with unrelated storylines, hoping to absorb her glow into the league's broader image. It was subtle, clever, and transparent all at once. By now, fans were no longer passive. They dissected broadcast cues like detectives timing commercial breaks, analyzing how commentators framed her performances, noting which replays got skipped. They're trying to mute her impact, one Reddit thread declared, and thousands agreed. The conversation had evolved beyond basketball. It was about media power, authenticity, and the control of truth. The WNBA had become a stage where fans and journalists battled networks for the soul of the story. And still, through all the noise, Caitlin Clark played on, head down, eyes up, unbothered. Each time she drained a deep three or threaded a perfect assist, the crowd erupted louder and the spin unraveled further. No manufactured narrative could contain what was happening in real time. The ESPN machine had tried to rewrite the script, But the audience had already chosen its ending. Because in the end, the truth doesn't need editing. It just needs time, and Clark's every game was proof that time had already run out on the lie. They tried to bury the story, but they forgot the truth doesn't rot. When the cameras cut away, when the analysts changed their tone, when the highlight reels began to skip her brilliance, fans noticed. And that's when the movement began. ESPN wanted silence, but instead, they created an echo. The more they minimized Caitlin Clark's impact, the louder her legacy became. People weren't just watching basketball anymore. They were watching a battle for honesty, a struggle between narrative and reality. Between a network that wanted control and a player who only wanted to play. The exposure started small screenshots, Reddit threads, independent podcasts breaking down discrepancies in ESPN's broadcast patterns. But within weeks, the evidence had formed a mosaic too big to ignore. Viewers tracked how her name was strategically cut from segment titles, how panels spent more time debating her personality than analyzing her performance, how replays from other stars lingered longer, while Clark's game-winning shots flashed by in seconds. This wasn't coincidence, it was choreography, and it backfired spectacularly, because every act of suppression only made her more visible. Clips that ESPN skipped were uploaded by fans seconds later. Independent creators, TikTok analysts, and basketball vloggers began producing full breakdowns dedicated to Clark's vision, her leadership, her stats, her influence. The network that tried to contain her had unleashed her to millions more outside its walls. The very audience ESPN hoped to manage had taken control of the narrative. It wasn't just about sports anymore, it was about authenticity. Viewers began asking uncomfortable questions. Why was a network built on truth bending it for ratings? Why were journalists, who once prided themselves on transparency, echoing corporate talking points? The answers were ugly but predictable. Power, sponsorships, contracts, control. And in every way, Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise had disrupted that order. Her presence didn't just boost numbers. It threatened hierarchies. She wasn't supposed to be the face of the WNBA yet. She was supposed to wait her turn. But talent doesn't wait for permission. By mid-season, the contradictions became impossible to hide. ESPN anchors who'd once downplayed her impact began shifting tones, suddenly calling her transformational. By the face of the league, a generational force. It was damage control wrapped in praise. Behind the scenes, executives realized that suppressing her story had become more costly than embracing it. But by then, the trust they'd broken was gone. Fans were done being fed narratives. They wanted raw truth. And they found it not in highlight reels, but in Clark's actions on the court. And those actions spoke louder than any broadcast ever could. Game after game, she shattered expectations, triple-doubles, historic scoring runs, viral assists that made defenders look like ghosts. Even when opponents tried to rough her up, even when refs swallowed their whistles, she never flinched. She just kept producing. Every made shot was a rebuttal. Every cheer from the stands was a vote of confidence against the system. ESPN had the platform, but Caitlin Clark had the people. The shift was undeniable. Advertisers followed her instead of the network. Social metrics showed independent content about Clark outperforming official. ESPN posts by margins that embarrassed the brand. Comment sections became battlegrounds where fans dissected media bias and defended the player they believed was being targeted. ESPN had accidentally awakened a generation of digital watchdogs viewers who no longer consumed, but questioned, analyzed, and exposed. By the time the playoffs arrived, ESPN could no longer dictate the tone. Their coverage had become reactionary force to follow the online conversation rather than lead it. Clark's name dominated search trends, TikTok feeds, and YouTube thumbnails. Every attempt to dilute her visibility now looked like fear. You can't spin authenticity, one viral tweet said, and it summed up the entire season. The narrative that ESPN tried to engineer had crumbled under the weight of a simple truth. People trust what they feel more than what they're told. Inside the WNBA, the ripple effect was seismic. Other players, even those who once criticized her, began to acknowledge her influence. Sponsors shifted attention to matchups involving the Fever, and ticket sales soared wherever they played. What ESPN saw as imbalance, the league now saw as opportunity. The game was finally growing not because of manufactured